成为一个令人敬佩的 leader， 跟团队的有效沟通非常重要。今天我跟 Nick 特别分析了美国即将上任的总统 Joe Biden 与副总统 Kamala Harris 的胜选演说，整理出一些简洁有力的英文句型，教大家将如何运用这些句型在职场中。那我们单元也会截取胜选演说的片段哦。Stay tuned to today's episode.Hello， 欢迎来到商业英语 Career Plus 的 Podcast。在这边，我们利用多年国际职场与教学经验，带给大家最真实与贴切的职场英语知识。Hi, I'm Sherry, founder of Executive Plus. As a language trainer and certified coach, I've trained hundreds of managers from Fortune 500 companies such as Dior, Google, and Deloitte & Touche.
And I'm Nick, Director of Communication Strategy at Presentality.I've helped startups raise millions of US dollars in funding and trained executives of publicly listed companies to present on the global stage. Hey everyone, welcome to Career Plus Podcast episode 20. Now, in the past week, I'm sure a lot of people have been glued to their televisions or staring at their phone looking at the US election results.Today, we don't want to get into the politics of things, but we do think there are a few key takeaways you can get from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's President and Vice President-elect victory speeches. A lot of people assume that, being a high-powered leader or company CEO, you should be fluent, you should be confident, and you should know how to inspire.This is true, but the way that it gets done is not quite what you think. It's not about the big GRE words or the super complicated sentences. It's about being clear and concise.
其实我发现有很多的一些领导者的演说啊，或者是一些政治家的演说，你会发现他们的一些演说的一些字汇其实都不难。但是他们有一些非常特殊的句型，能够让他们的演说简单扼要，而且是浅显易懂，也能够让他的 message 能够很快速的传达出去，而且能够让人家记得他的 message.
So, from these speeches, we've pulled out 3 really easy guidelines and speech patterns that you can follow in order to make your speaking sound more fluent, sound more leader-like, and just make sure everyone understands what you're saying. The first one is a basic contrast pattern. Yes, no, I will not.
所以我们第一个就会发现他们常用这种 contrast， 也就是可能是在一句很简短的一句，他就会讲说我会做什么，我不会做什么，我是什么，我不是什么，就是这个 contrast.
Now, the second thing that we're going to cover is repetition or parallelism.But basically, the idea is you take one key idea or one key sentence pattern and you just repeat it over and over so that your audience really lets it sink in.
所以我们第二个就发现它有一种叫做 repetition 加上 parallelism。那 repetition 就是重复性的，还有 parallelism 它是个叫做中文所谓叫平行架构，也就是它的那个语法的形式都一致，那语法形式一致再加上这种重复，它就会变成让人家的记忆点非常的高。比如说他可能用一个名词，那就是名词重复的同一个名词，或者是重复的同一个动词，或者是形容词，所以我们等一下也会看到一些
example.Now, the last thing we want to talk about is something that you've probably heard Sherry and I hit upon over and over again, which is the call to action. That anytime you give a speech, or if you give agreement or disagreement, there always should be a follow-up action. So, any good speech or any good presentation has that call to action sentence. And there are a few really key sentence patterns or phrases that you can easily use to create a call to action.
就最后一个就是我们所谓的召唤行动，call to action。那召唤行动我们在之前的非常多 podcast 也都会讲到，比如说你开完会，或者是你做完一个简单的 presentation， 那身为一个领导者，或者是你希望成为一个领导者，当然这个召唤行动就是非常的重要。而且呢，我们2020年就要 coming to an end， 那你这个时候呢，你就很需要一个领导者去这种 call to action to inspire your staff.
So let's jump right into it. The first concept that we want to share with you is this idea of building contrasts into your speech. The I am not, I will not. And Sherry, you went through both the vice president-elect and the president-elect speech and pulled out a few good examples. Could you share some of the ideas behind them, please?
Right. So in Kamala's speech, actually this becomes a very famous line, and a lot of people, newspaper articles, they're using what she said and actually quoted her quite a bit. So she said this: "While I may be the first woman in the office, I will not be the last."
But while I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last.
所以它这种句型 while I may be， 然后 I will not 这样子的 contrasting， 而且是在一句就非常快速的讲我是而不是。Or the second one, which is coming from Biden's victory speech. 那 Biden 讲说
I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide but unify.
I pledge to be the president who seeks not to divide but unify. So seeks not to, but 所以这个非常简单的就是我要什么而不是什么。
And so these are simple things that you could use in your own speech and your own presentation to drive across the point. So let's say that you're a younger manager or you have a younger team and a lot of people in the company are looking at you like, what do you know? And this happens a lot for people who are coming up through the ranks. So one thing that you may be able to do is you can say is, while we may be young, we are not inexperienced.
Right. So it's very clear that you're talking about, I do have experience. And then after the sentence, you can tell them about your experience.
Yeah, your proof can be right there. It's like, while we may be young, we are not inexperienced. In the last year, we have accomplished, A, B, C. And really highlight those key accomplishments that show the experience that you've built.
所以我们就可以用我们刚刚之前Kamala他讲的这个句型的方式 While we might be young, while I may be 一样的这种句型的方式 We are not inexperienced. 那刚刚Kamala讲说 I will not be the last. 就是用这种 contrasting 的这种句型的方式很非常快速而且非常直接的就可以 deliver 你的 message.
Right. Now, the other example you gave with Joe Biden is something about I will do this, or I will not only do this, but do something else. So a way that you could use that kind of sentence pattern yourself, say something like, as a manager, most people think, oh, boss, they're here to tell me what to do. So maybe to sort of comfort them or give them confidence, you might say, I am not here to manage you, but to guide you.
Yeah. 所以我们就用了一样 Biden 他这种句型的方式 I am not here to do something but to do something 就是非常简单的这个地方其实你只要去想一下你这个你想要做的 presentation 或 speech 你的这个重点在哪里是跟不是你这两个重点抓出来你很简单的在一句话你就可以 deliver 你的 message.
Yeah. And if used properly, this is a really good way to disarm people.I'll give you a quick example. I once was requested to go into a university and give a talk about how to teach English. And as soon as I walked in the room, I noticed that every professor in that room was older than me. They probably had been teaching longer than me. And they just kind of had a look like, who are you to tell us what to do? Why are you here?And so one of the first things that I did is I sat down and I looked at that and says, I'm not here to tell you how to do your job. I'm just here to share my experiences of what worked. And if you can work that into your practice, that's great. And immediately you could see a shift because they expected me to come in and be like, this is the best way to teach English because I'm a native speaker. But all I did is I walk in and says, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to share my experiences.
Right. So again, Nick didn't have to explain a lot, what his experience was and what's not, but right away he was able to kind of effectively communicate to the professors, what the purpose of this lecture was.
Yeah, and you could see that shift of them going, oh, okay, you're not here to look down on us.
Right.
And so this kind of phrasing can be used very effectively to, declare who you are, but put people at ease.
Again, 所以我们刚刚讲到了2个例句。那第一个例句就是 While we might be young, we are not inexperienced. 那第二个例句就是 I am not here to manage you, but to guide you. Okay? 所以这2个例句都是非常 clear, concise. Again, 它有个非常的强烈的对比，它的强烈的 contrast. 但是它非常快速，而且很在一句非常 effective 的，你就可以 deliver 你的 message.
Right. So the second key thing that we wanted to share with you is the idea of repetition and parallelism. Now, a lot of people give repetition or parallelism kind of a bad reputation. They're like, oh, you keep repeating yourself, or they always feel like, oh, it's not fluent. I just repeat myself over and over again. Repeating yourself is actually not a problem if you know how to do it very effectively, because it's about drilling an idea into someone's head.
Right.
The things that you say should be memorable. I remember when reading Robert Iger, the former CEO of Disney's autobiography. He talks about how when he wanted to become CEO of Disney, he hired a really super famous PR wizard who was going to come in and help him become CEO. And the guy looked at him and goes, what's your platform? What are your ideas? And Bob Iger goes, oh, I'm going to do blah, 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 blah. And he gave like this long talk. And the guy goes, 3 things. 3 things that you can repeat and get into their head. That's all that you say to the board.
因为其实人的记忆是有限的。
Yeah.
而且人呢当然因为我觉得很多人觉得那个 repeat 好像就是一个人然后一直讲重复话，其实不是这样子。那个 repetition 它是有它的艺术， there's an art to that, right? How you do it can be more effective. So it's good and bad. You can do it poorly when it becomes, just boring, or you can do it really well where people just kind of like really clearly understand your message. And I think that from the victory speeches, we can definitely see a lot of examples of how they use it pretty well, I think.
Yeah, and so what they're using is they just use one phrase or a set of phrases over and over again to create a picture in your head. So a really great example from Biden's was he talks about the word battle over and over again. So in one section he goes,
Americans have called upon us to marshal the forces of decency, the forces of fairness, to marshal the forces of science, and the forces of hope in the great battles of our time. The battle to control the virus, the battle to build prosperity, the battle to secure your family's health care, the battle to achieve racial justice and root out systemic racism in this country. And the battle to save our planet by getting climate under control. The battle to restore decency, defend democracy, and give everybody in this country a fair shot. That's all they're asking for, a fair shot.
The battle to control the virus, the battle to build prosperity, the battle to secure your family's health, the battle to achieve racial justice. And it actually continues going from there.
Yeah.
But he puts this image in your head, the battle of our fight, right?
Right. 所以就是很明显的就讲说我们现在其实要进入一个战场。The battle, right?
Yeah.
And then he keeps, using the same thing, like the battle of, the battle of, the battle to. 所以那个 the battle 就是我们所谓的这个 repetition. 那它也会这个也算是一种 repetition, 然后它也有这种平行的架构，你就会发现它的架构都是一样的，所以它有了那种让你不会忘记，让你永远会记得 的这些点。
Right. So you can use this similar thought process to open a presentation or a speech, right? So I might say something like, hello, everyone. Today, I want to share with you my plan to grow, my plan to learn, and my plan to succeed.
Yeah. Or if you're, a manager and you wanted to award your team or, promote your team members, you can say that our team has shown its ability to learn, ability to adapt, and ability to win.
Right. And it may seem simple, but when someone walks away from, say, the first example, they will go, this person has a plan.
Yeah.
Right? And when they walk away from the second example, they'll be like, their team is very capable.
Yeah.
They have strong abilities.
Exactly.
And you're just using one word to go over and over again. But again, that idea will stick with someone.
Right. So again, 刚刚我们的 example 就是 Today, I want to share with you my plan to grow, plan to learn, and plan to succeed. And the second one, our team has shown its ability to learn, ability to adapt, and ability to win.
All right. The very last takeaway that we want to leave with you guys is a call to action. Now, of course, these are the vice president and president-elect, so everyone is looking forward to the next 4 years. What are they going to do? So they need to address this. This is the same for, as Sherry said earlier, it's the end of 2020. It's been a weird, interesting year. And now we're about to look forward to either has the world changed and how are we going to deal with it? Or do we hope to go back to the way it was and how do we do that? So this call to action becomes really important.
Yeah.
And there's 3 really great phrases that came from the speech. The first one would just be, it's time for.
It's time for our better angels to prevail.
Yeah, 你会常常一直听到这个 It's time for, it's time for, it's time for. 这是时候了. It's time for. And there's a second one, I think it's quite used a lot actually. Let us be.
Let us be the nation that we know we can be. A nation united, a nation strengthened, a nation healed.
It starts the sentence with let us be. Let us be the nation that we know we can be. The nation united, and so on.
Yeah, so it's that call to action as a group. Let us do something. Let us be something and aspire. It's a very aspirational idea.
Exactly.
And the last phrase is, let this. Let this be a lesson. Let this thing teach us something, right?
Let this grim era of demonization in America begin to end here and now.
So at your work, you can definitely use these kind of examples to kind of finish and end your presentation or your speech. So the first one is you can say, it's time for a new way of thinking, right? With the COVID and all that, we've changed a lot of our routine. So you can say, it's time for a new way of thinking.
It's a time to reflect on what we've done. So New Year's, we always talk about resolution. So it might be, it's a time to reflect on the past and move forward, something like that. Another example using the let us is, let us work toward a better 2021.
That's a really good way to call to action at the very end of 2020, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And the third one is, let this be a lesson in our drive to succeed. Yeah. It's a good conclusion for this year, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And, we keep talking about the end of the year, but you can use this anytime. So you could say it's let us work towards a better Q2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just find a milestone that's upcoming or some kind of goal that you want people to hit. It's as we approach our financial goal, let us do something.
Yeah. 所以我们刚刚讲到了这一些都是用 it's time 或者是 let us 或者 let this be 用这样子去让你当成你的句首。So, for example, 你可以讲说 it's time for a new way of thinking. Let us work towards a better 2021. Let this be a lesson in our drive to succeed.
I hope everyone got a phrase or a pattern out of this that they can use in their next speech or their next discussion. Again, the key of this is it doesn't take GRE words or really complicated grammar to come across as a leader or come across confident. It's about being clear, concise, and using these patterns or these guidelines to create something very memorable.
所以要大家记得，当你要做一个 speech or presentation 或者 deliver 一个 message， 简单扼要，还要呢在很短的时间你就可以 communicate 你的 message 出去，其实比你有很多你知道很多单字，或者是你的文法句型弄得非常的复杂，比这些都还要重要太多了。Alright, so I hope you guys learned something today, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
如果你喜欢我们的 podcast， 欢迎来追踪我们的主管英文 Executive Plus 的 Facebook。那也可以写信到我们的信箱 yourcareerplus@gmail.com。